Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andrew DeCino, and it was draft weekend this past Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and there was a lot that had transpired over the course of the weekend. Of course, we can all look up the draft recap. We can see winners and losers from the draft, but for this episode, we're going to go a little bit of a different route. Now, I don't even think the biggest story of the draft was, Lawrence going 1 or Justin Fields to Chicago or any of that. Might have been Aaron Rodgers and how unhappy he is in Green Bay. That might have been the biggest story of the entire weekend. And that's going to be our segment 1. Segment 2, we're going to jump right into the quarterback situations from the draft. I'm going to say who has the best situation, who has the worst. There were the 5 quarterbacks, of course, taken in the first round, similar to the 2018 draft class with Mayfield and Allen and Darnold and Rosen and Jackson. In the next segment, we spent so many hours and minutes and days talking about what Atlanta is going to do with the number 4 pick. Are they going to trade out? Are they going to stay there? Are they going to take a quarterback? Are they going to rebuild? Are they going to reload? And so we found out the answer to that, and that's going to be segment 3. Segment 4, now normally we talk about, we do rankings. Last week we did, how each AFC division will finish. But in this case, I wanted to do a little bit of breaking news. As I was recording this episode, the news came out that the Bills are exercising the 5th-year option of Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds. Breaking news. Now, what does that mean for the team that went to the AFC Championship game a year prior? What does that mean for Josh Allen's happiness? Of course, that's important. So that's segment 4 today. Let's just jump straight into it. Aaron Rodgers and his unhappiness in Green Bay. Now, we knew that Aaron Rodgers sometimes might not be the most jovial guy. Before this past year, I thought that Aaron Rodgers was a bit of a grouch. He was unhappy. But that's just because you didn't get to see enough of Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. The perception of him was, he's a little quiet. He might not be the friendliest guy. He seems a little sensitive. But then when he went on the Pat McAfee show for this entire 2020 season, every single week, you got to see the true colors of Aaron Rodgers. He's a funny guy, and he's a good guy. And then he went to host Jeopardy, crushed it. He wants to be the Jeopardy host permanently. I fully support it. He could do it. And Aaron Rodgers and his relationship with Green Bay is an interesting one because he won the Super Bowl, of course, back in 2010. Pretty early into his career as a starter in Green Bay. And since then, of course, they have not won the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers has won MVPs. And of course, most recently, he was MVP in the 2020 campaign. But it seems as if Rodgers is not happy with the direction that the Green Bay Packers have gone in at times, whether it be play calling, whether it be personnel, roster decisions. And if you take a look at how the Packers have drafted in recent memory, they don't get him help. I remember a few years ago, he was playing after, I think it was right after Rodgers signed that big contract extension. And there was not enough money to, go out and sign these premier wide receivers. And they ended up playing with, Equinemius, St. Brown, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and all of that. And he was complaining about having these, undrafted rookie free agents playing at wide receiver. And I would always be like, well, he signed the big contract, so that's what you're going to get. You're not going to have enough money to sign other people. And from there, it seemed like he made it work for a while. The last 3 years, he's gone 13-3, or the last 2 years, gone to the NFC Championship game. But the last 4 times he's been to the NFC Championship game, it has not ended very well. He has not been able to get back to that Super Bowl. And I'm sure he's unhappy about it. He is reaching the stage of his career where he wants to win more than getting paid. And I think that fallout really happened when the Packers drafted Jordan Love in the draft last year. Aaron Rodgers was mad that night when they drafted Jordan Love. There's no way he could not have been. And in the immediate aftermath, some might say that it motivated Rodgers, motivated him to have one of the best seasons of his entire career, won MVP. He was spectacular, but of course they didn't advance past the NFC Championship game. And so drafting Love kind of, if Aaron Rodgers needed more motivation than he already had, it lit a fire underneath him. Wins MVP, has Jordan Love right behind him. But on the other hand, no matter how well he does, no matter how well Rodgers does, the Packers did spend a first-round pick on Love. That is an indicator that he is their future. So Rodgers could win MVP last year. He could win MVP this year. He could win MVP the next year. But eventually, are they just going to move on from a first-round pick when Aaron Rodgers is increasing in age? Now, on the record here, I don't support what the Packers are doing. I'm on Team Rodgers' side. I think it is, at this point, now it is tricky because I'm going to equate this to Brady. And you can't equate many things to Brady, but we can try. I was always saying to use Tom Brady's age as a reason to why he is not going to play well is not a reason. You can have it be a reason, but it's a terrible one. Oh, well, he's turning 44, 43, 44. So he's not going to be good because no one's been good. Well, that happened at age, we've been saying that at age 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. How many years are we going to go through this? Because it started back in 2014. The year, FYI, for all of you out there, in case you didn't know, it's 2021. And the same thing has been said about Brady since 2014. Now, if you want to be stubborn in your ways and take the easy way out and keep saying year after year, well, Brady's older, so he's not going to do well. Eventually you're going to be right. He's not going to be 60 years old and playing. I'll say that. How about that? I'll go out on a limb. I'll say he's not going to be playing at 60. But I honestly would not bet any money that he wouldn't be playing at 50. I'm serious. He's 43. He'll be 44. He's under contract through 45. And if he's still playing at an elite level, which all indicators point to yes, he will. Because for the last 11 games of the regular season, Tom Brady had the highest, I think, EPA per play and expected completion percentage, or a completion percentage above expected. So the argument of, he's getting older, he's not going to be as good. Wrong. You've been wrong since 2014. I hate to break the news to you. So Aaron Rodgers is a special, special talent. And now to use that same argument for Rodgers, now I'm not going to say Rodgers is going to be playing until 50 because, this could be a whole another discussion and rabbit hole. I think the ways that those two are motivated are a bit different. I think Tom Brady is absolutely insane when it comes to proving people wrong and his motivation, and most of his motivation is internal and trying to prove it to himself. Whereas Rodgers, I think he'd be completely satisfied, walking out and playing Jeopardy host for the rest of his life. I think he'd be fine with that too. So that's one thing. But to get back to the argument that we were initially on, for the Packers to say, well, Rodgers is getting up there in age, so we need to go draft his replacement now. Well, didn't you draft his replacement after going 13-3? And you were in the NFC Championship game, and you got blown out by San Francisco. So for a guy who's playing at, let's think back to 2019 here for a second, you got ramroded by San Francisco twice that year. You went 13-3, lost in the NFC Championship game. Wasn't close. Why does drafting a Jordan Love in the first round help you? Even the Falcons, and we'll get to them in segment 3, think that drafting Kyle Pitts gets them closer than reloading and rebuilding with a new quarterback. You're close. Why are you drafting a quarterback in the first round when you're 13-3 and clearly it's you just need help offensively? And if you want to stack the defense, by all means, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be complaining about that either. But yeah, in 2014, if you want to equate the two situations, and listen, I'm not just someone who harps on Brady all day. These situations are very comparable. In 2014, New England drafted Jimmy Garoppolo in the second round. Clearly, Brady was not too pleased. In 2013, the year prior, they lost in the AFC Championship game to Denver. 26-16, similar situations, losing the championship round the year before. Draft a quarterback early. The only difference is Bill Belichick did get Brady help in other areas as well. He got him help on the defensive side of the football. He said, we let Peyton throw for 400 yards in that AFC Championship game. How about this? Darrelle Revis come to town. Brandon Browner, welcome. Patrick Chung, welcome back. Brandon LaFell, how do you do? Want to come play for us? And then so you kind of restack that way, and yeah, you do draft Jimmy Garoppolo because I understand that teams probably do have a duty to look into the future. But if I'm the Packers drafting Jordan Love in the first round last year, that's going to piss off your starting quarterback. Why not just get a guy in the fourth round? Rodgers would be fine with that. But look at the first round picks that the Packers have made. They don't help. Where are the offensive guys? Honestly, where are the offensive guys? And did you make it up to Aaron Rodgers by going and drafting A.J. Dillon? No, not really. What did that do for you? He's like the third running back on your team. So, listen. Aaron Rodgers, reportedly, he's just disgruntled because, he says he doesn't want to play in Green Bay next year. Him and the Packers are just completely not seeing eye to eye. I think we just went over the roster decisions and them not wanting to restructure his contract into giving him more years and more security. Guys like Rodgers and Brady weren't looking for more money. They wanted promises of saying, hey, we are committed to you, instead of committing to this Jordan Love or Jimmy Garoppolo. Commit to me. Give me years. Trust me that as I get older, I will play well. Invest in me, not into the future. Win now. Win next year. And win the year after that. And 4 years down the line, and after we've won Super Bowls, I think you'll be okay that maybe you didn't, go and prepare with a, promising number one first-round draft choice, Jordan Love. So this was on Thursday when Aaron Rodgers wanted out. And apparently, Aaron Rodgers wants the GM, Brian Gutekunst, fired. He has told Green Bay he does not want to return. And apparently, on draft night, the 49ers inquired into Aaron Rodgers and offered the Packers that third overall pick. And apparently, Aaron Rodgers wanted the Packers to accept the 49ers trade offer. Could you imagine that? The 49ers offered the third overall pick for Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers knew about the offer, this is according to Michael David Smith of Pro Football Talk, and wanted the Packers to take it. And so I think, could you imagine Rodgers with that Shanahan offense? He'd love it. He'd love throwing a Debo. I mean, the type of jet motion runs they do. I mean, Kyle Shanahan is a great offensive mind. And he's playing in the division. Sure. Division's tough. The Rams are tough. Seahawks are tough. Cardinals are emerging. And then the other team that surfaced was Denver. That Denver wanted to go and get Aaron Rodgers. So that is a team, of course, in the division of Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. So the two teams that we know of, Denver and San Francisco, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers would go either place. He would rather choose San Francisco on that West Coast. He loves the West Coast. It's where he grew up. It's where he could host Jeopardy. So, listen. The only other thing, and this one is, now we're really hyper-analyzing here, okay? The 49ers admitted that they offered the third overall pick for Aaron Rodgers, and then they go draft Trey Lance. Now, yes, if I'm Trey Lance, I know that a team would probably want Aaron Rodgers over me, but it's still not cool knowing that you're second fiddle. I know this could be a grow-up moment and grow some tough skin because people would rather have Aaron Rodgers than you, and I'm sure he gets it. But if I'm the 49ers, don't advertise this to people. Why? Because now you're just making your third overall pick maybe feel a little bad about himself. And Mike Florio brought up a good point. This is against the league's tampering policy. Aaron Rodgers is a player under contract with the Green Bay Packers. If the league wanted to, they could get the 49ers on tampering. They really could. It is textbook definition of tampering. And of course, tampering is really only enforced arbitrarily by the league whenever they want to go slap the wrist of someone. So that's tampering. I don't know why they advertised it if I'm the 49ers. And I now make Trey Lance feel bad. Chris Sims was saying, well, it's a way, grow some skin. It's, a good tough boy moment of welcome to, the NFL. Well, I disagree with that. Trey Lance is already a guy that's raw. I don't know. Don't shake his confidence at all. So now we'll get into the 49ers and Trey Lance in a little bit and what their future outlook is like. But Aaron Rodgers, I mean, think about the situation he could have in Denver, right? With Judy and Hamler and Cortland Sutton. How about those for weapons? That's a team that invests in weapons. With Elway there, Elway, is gonna. He would love to get Aaron Rodgers. Didn't he do the same thing with Peyton Manning back in 2012? You go and get a Hall of Fame quarterback in the twilight of his career and go win a Super Bowl. Maybe go to a couple Super Bowls. And the defense isn't bad either. Denver always plays defense well. And, Rodgers is used to a good home field advantage in Green Bay. Denver is a tough place to play. It is. I think that would be a great option for him too. San Francisco, I think he would probably prefer. And I think the place that he would least prefer, obviously, is Green Bay. But think about that. And if you think about it from the Green Bay Packers perspective, you have Brett Favre and you have Aaron Rodgers over the course of what? Combined, is that 25 years of the two? Something like that. Maybe close to 30. I don't know. I'm not going to do the math right here and now. But, you only get one Super Bowl from each quarterback. Imagine that. You say you get Brett Favre and you get Aaron Rodgers. How many Super Bowls do you expect? I think you would expect more than 2. Especially when you have them around that long. And at this point, Rodgers wanting Gutekunst fired, I think is warranted from the Rodgers perspective. And of course, I'll relate it one last time before we close out this segment to the Brady argument. When Brady was having a rift with Belichick, who was, the de facto GM, who was there to step in and mediate for a couple of years before this fell apart? It was Robert Kraft, who's the owner of the Green Bay Packers, to mediate. Exactly. No one. Well, actually, everyone. But, there's no mediator. There's no third party. There's no arbitrator or arbiter. I don't know. Whichever one of those words is right. Pick which one you want. It doesn't matter to me. But, okay, this is why this is falling apart. There's no one to help mediate. There's no one to say, yeah, maybe we should have gotten Rodgers some help. Okay, let's go get him some help. Let's go sign some guys in free agency right now for you, Aaron. Let's go restructure that deal, Aaron, because we weren't fair to you. Yeah, Aaron, we drafted Jordan Love last year. But we'll make up for that. Don't worry. There's no one to remedy this situation. But that was on Thursday evening. And then Thursday night, the first round happened. And we'll get into that in segment 2. Who are the quarterbacks with the situations that are the best and the situations that are the worst? That's coming up next, right after the break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
In segment 1, of course, we talked about the Aaron Rodgers dilemma. He is very, very unhappy, I believe, in Green Bay. And all reports are saying that he's unhappy. San Francisco offered a trade to get Aaron Rodgers. They offered the Packers the number 3 overall pick in return for Aaron Rodgers. The Packers declined, but Rodgers wanted it. Apparently Denver wants him. I'm sure a lot of other teams want him too. But one thing we know for sure, Rodgers wants Gutekunst out. He is unhappy with the roster decisions. He is unhappy with his contract, and he is unhappy with Green Bay to the extent that he just does not want to play for them anymore. Now, segment 2, we're going to get into the quarterbacks. Because the quarterback is, and let's face it, in this league, they're the most important position. You know, besides the center, they have their ball in the hand, their hands on the ball more than anyone else. You know, of course, there are some times when there's a direct snap to someone else and the quarterback doesn't have their hands on the ball, but you know what I mean. Now, there are quarterbacks taken in this draft. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, 1, 2, 3, boom. In the first round. There is also Justin Fields drafted by the Bears. Mac Jones, of course, went 15 to the New England Patriots. And that caps off our quarterback situation in the first round. So we may be asking ourselves, what quarterback is going to be in the best situation? We could think short-term and long-term. You know, how did each of these teams do as well? Now, Trevor Lawrence, first overall pick, went to Jacksonville. You know, Jacksonville, really, if you think about their last 13 seasons, they missed the playoffs 12 of their last 13 seasons. They have had the second worst record in the NFL since 2008. And now they fall into Trevor Lawrence, who since high school, middle school, has been a top prospect. And probably for the last 3 years, everyone has just been saying, well, Trevor Lawrence is going to go number 1 as a fact. Probably for 3 years. And it happened. Trevor Lawrence went number 1. Now, Jacksonville is not a great situation. But they do have a new head coach, Urban Meyer, which we can assume he is going to, you know, be a great motivator. As a college coach, one of the best college coaches, that's what he does. He knows how to speak to the young guys. And he has 2 new great young guys, Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. Etienne and Lawrence are going to be reunited. They were college mates together in Clemson. But if you look at the roster around Trevor Lawrence and Etienne, who are the playmakers that he's going to have? And of course, they draft Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall to try and compensate for maybe the lack of playmakers on that team. But at wide receiver, you have DJ Chark. You have James Robinson. You got James O'Shaughnessy at tight end. But who else are you throwing to? That's my question. Besides Chark. Seriously. I mean, you got Jamal Agnew. You got Philip Dorsett, okay. Terry Godwin. Marvin Jones. These aren't like premier guys, though. Think about it. So the situation that he's going into, short term, listen, I know I made my AFC predictions last week. And I think I had the Jaguars squeaking into the playoffs. In order for that to happen, Lawrence has to win Rookie of the Year. he has to be spectacular. He has to carry that team like an Andrew Luck did when he came to Indianapolis in his first year, going to the wild card round. That's what he's going to have to do. He has no help, in my opinion. He has a great head coach. He's going to have a nice running back drafted in the first round, a 1-2 punch of James Robinson and Travis Etienne. Couple good receivers, Chark, Marvin Jones. Besides that, Trevor Lawrence has got to make this happen. He's got to be similar play to Andrew Luck rookie year. And that's what's going to happen for them to have to go 10-7 like I predicted. That's, I think, their limit. Now, if they go 5-12, that's an improvement, right? But you're still not happy. I think somewhere around 500, 8-9, I think you would say that's a success for them. You know, Luck in 2012, his rookie year, because that's the comparison that I'm making right now. They went 11-5. And they went to the wild card round and lost 24-9 to the Ravens. 11-5 after having one of the worst seasons ever in 2011. Suck for Luck. And Luck did pretty well. 23 touchdowns, 18 picks. High amount of picks are expected for a rookie quarterback. But the thing about Luck was he had 7 game-winning drives that year. That right there is the difference. 7 game-winning drives. 4 fourth-quarter comebacks. That's why you get a guy like Andrew Luck to make that happen. You're going to need Trevor Lawrence to make those things happen. So short term, I think somewhere around 500 would be a success. 10-7 is their high limit. And really, I would hope they at least get to 5 wins with Trevor Lawrence. That's your future. That is what every talking head has been talking about for the last 3 years, Trevor Lawrence. All right, enough about him. Zach Wilson. Going to the Jets. Now, I think he has the worst situation to go to. We talked about the Jets, the Jaguars' talent, their roster. How about we talk about the Jets' roster and what they have to work with for at least the skill position? Because if we think that Trevor Lawrence didn't have a lot to work with, how about we talk about Zach Wilson? Now, you got Braxton Berrios, who played special teams in New England. You got Keelan Cole, Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, Josh Doxson, Denzel Mims. So, you're not in a horrible position, but you still don't have a ton of help. Everyone loves Zach Wilson because of the throws that he made during his pro day. We saw a falling away throw, and everyone was like, wow, Zach Wilson. And then you kind of look into it a little more, and you're like, Zach Wilson played at BYU. Okay, are they playing the toughest opponents every single year? No, they're not. Does he underthrow some guys sometimes and maybe not have the strongest arm? Yeah. Now, he's going to a team that's going to be in a division with the Buffalo Bills, who I predict to win the division and probably win the AFC. You got Miami, who probably will go to the playoffs. They're a great team. Had a great draft, too. You have the Patriots, who we'll get to them a little later on when we talk about Mac Jones. But at least they have Belichick, who I will say still does do pretty well against rookie quarterbacks. So it's going to be tough. I mean, the Jets aren't going to win a lot of games this year. I'm not saying Zach Wilson by any means isn't going to be, a really good talent. I think he'll probably perform better than Sam Darnold did. I just think as of now, that division is going to be too stacked for him to make any headway. Unfortunately for him, I look in the long term, the Buffalo Bills aren't going anywhere. That Miami team's not going to go anywhere. The Patriots just reloaded. That's tough. The Jets are by far the worst team in the division. And if he's a second overall choice, he'll have 4 to 5 years under his contract. And then if you think about 5 years in the future, what are the Jets going to do with him? Because they're not going to make the playoffs any of their years. I just don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong, great choice by the Jets. You have to draft Zach Wilson there because you have no answer at quarterback. And without a quarterback, you will never win in this league. Seriously. That is where the Jets were at. But it's almost sad to think long-term because it's like, Zach Wilson could change the Jets franchise. That's what they're hoping for. That is why they draft Zach Wilson, because they hope that he can change their franchise. But think about this. Is he going to change this franchise realistically in the next couple of years to beat the Buffalo Bills or to beat the Miami Dolphins? Maybe you could win 1 or 2 over the next 5 years against Miami. Maybe like 1 against Buffalo over the next 5 years. And then Bill Belichick against these young quarterbacks, he'll eat them up. And the Patriots defense is good. So I don't know. Zach Wilson could look really good, and he could do pretty well. He just won't win. So that's going to be the tricky issue. It might be like a Matt Stafford type of situation where he just can't do anything because the team around him stinks, and then he's just, squandered whatever by the Green Bay Packers in that NFC North like Matt Stafford was. So that's what I think about. Zach Wilson could be a great player. Could do really well. But in my analysis of wins, I don't know how he's going to get him. Number 3, of course, San Francisco moved up to the 3rd overall pick about a month ago. And everyone was like, they have to get a quarterback. They have to get a quarterback because you're not going to move up to 3 if you're not going to get a quarterback. And they got a quarterback. However, it was not the quarterback that everyone thought they were going to get. Everyone thought that they were going to get Mac Jones. But then I think there was some, really enlightening stuff brought to the forefront by, when I first heard it, it was Chris Collinsworth. He said, right now you got Garoppolo. And looking at their offense, of course, you do a lot of those motions and runs to the edge and swing a pass to the edge and, a bootleg, and Kyle Shanahan's got a great offense. But what does doing Mac Jones change from Jimmy Garoppolo, really? Jimmy Garoppolo seems to be not a pretty accurate passer. Throws the ball well. Nice fluid motion. But Mac Jones, what are you changing? Are you just hoping to get a slightly better version of Garoppolo? Seriously, is that what they were hoping for? Because everyone was saying Mac Jones, and then Chris Collinsworth brought that point up. What is Mac Jones going to do different? So instead, they went with Trey Lance, a guy that everyone says is like the raw talent kind of guy. If you're watching the NFL Network, they had Josh Allen do a little minute talk about Trey Lance because, Trey Lance went to North Dakota State. Allen went to Wyoming. Both looked at as these raw talent type of guys. And I guess Trey Lance went 17-0 as a starter. They say he has a strong arm. They say he can make off-platform throws. He's a good runner. He's got good size, and he's got good speed. So the reason they add Lance with the 3rd overall pick instead of Mac Jones is because I think of the size, the physicality, the speed, and the arm strength. I think they're hoping to get a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type player with Trey Lance. And Chris Collinsworth said, imagine you run that bootleg that you run with Garoppolo. And then Garoppolo's going to throw it most of that time. Throw it to the fullback, throw it to the tight end, whatever. Or you hand the ball off. Trey Lance adds that extra dynamic because after that bootleg, he could then sprint off the edge. And now you have to account for an extra guy in your coverage. That's what Trey Lance does. So I like the move. And right now you could still start Garoppolo because in all likelihood they think that Lance is not going to be ready yet to start, which is fine. You play at North Dakota State, and you're not expected to, run a pro offense that's Super Bowl ready like the 49ers. So Garoppolo will start. But it's going to be interesting because what if Lance motivates Garoppolo to play like lights out? Then what do you do? What if Garoppolo gets you to the NFC Championship game again? Questions. That's Trey Lance. I like the pick. I like going for the talent and the higher ceiling than Mac Jones. Now, the Chicago Bears traded with the Giants, moved up to 11, and they went and got Justin Fields, who, if you remember, outdueled Trevor Lawrence in that college football playoff game. Made some beautiful, deep throws. I think Justin Fields, he's got a nice, strong arm, and he can throw a really nice deep ball. I think so. Really nice deep ball. And he's got some good speed, too. And I think if you're looking at analysis on the player himself, people are saying that he wants to see his receiver get open and he needs to do a better job at anticipating. But they say he's accurate. Keeps his eyes downfield. He's not going to just run all over the place, drop his eyes after the first read's not there and start moving around. But if we talk about situation that guys are going into, this right here is not a great one. Matt Nagy wants a quarterback. He is known for his offensive knowledge, but that offense finished 26th last year. Trubisky's gone. Now you have Foles and Dalton, who are neither of which the long-term answer. So will Justin Fields start immediately? I think you're going to, now if we've analyzed the quarterbacks that we've broken down so far, Lawrence will start. Wilson will start opening week. Lance will not start opening week. And I don't think Fields will. Well, I think Fields will have a chance if he wins a quarterback competition in training camp and in preseason. That's what he's got to do. Now, he's got some guys like Allen Robinson. So the team around him is not bad. That Bears defense is always going to be good. So with Justin Fields, you're going to probably ask him, the Bears are used to playing good defense and then having a guy who just will try not to mess up on offense at quarterback. I think Bears are looking, I think this is a good pick if you're the Bears, because now you got a guy that actually knows how to play offense. So I think, although some might say he's going into a terrible situation, I think he won't be that bad. I think Matt Nagy could try and work something here with Justin Fields, something that he was unable to accomplish with Mitchell Trubisky. I like the outlook that the Bears have right now. And let's get to the last guy, Mac Jones, the Mac attack. So New England went with quarterback at 15. Some were surprised that Mac Jones lasted to 15. But he was coached by Nick Saban at Alabama. Of course, Belichick and Saban have that relationship together, which is probably why he drafted Mac Jones. The Mac Jones has played against the best competition in college football. He's played on the biggest stages. And this seems like a guy that Belichick wants. Not much of a presence running the football, but he's got a good pocket sense. He knows how to throw. Good release. And if you're talking about people who can throw the ball well, he's the best quarterback on the roster in terms of throwing. He's better than Newton, and he's better than Jarrett Stidham. Now, the question is, he is going into a great situation. They reloaded on offense with Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar on offense. Still got James White. Still got Damian Harris. And now, on defense, you got Gilmore, you got Devin McCourty. Hightower's back. A lot of good young guys up front. Winovich. So, J.C. Jackson. John Jones. He's going into a great situation. Great defense. Good offense. The question is, will he start week 1? Or will he go with Cam Newton? My guess is Cam Newton will start. And when Cam Newton starts skipping balls to guys running 12-yard digs, that's when Mac Jones is going to come in. I bet New England starts off, given their schedule, somewhere between 1-3, 2-2, and then Mac Jones comes in. He'll come in after the first quarter of the NFL season, just about. Mac Jones, I think, if we're rating each of these guys' situations, I am going to go Mac Jones 1. I'm going to go Trey Lance 2 because of the coaching there, Kyle Shanahan, and the team that's ready around him. Trevor Lawrence 3. Very closely tied with Justin Fields at like 3A. And then last but not least, Zach Wilson because he's on the Jets. Sorry, Jets. I explained earlier why it's just not feasible for Zach Wilson to have success. That's my breakdown of the 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Now, we're all wondering what Atlanta was going to do with their pick. We found out. Now, what does that mean for their future? I think a lot of implications are on the line with Atlanta. We'll talk about them next, right after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
So in the first 2 segments, we talked about, first, Aaron Rodgers. What is going on with Aaron Rodgers and the dilemma going on in Green Bay? Wants the GM fired. Unhappy with the roster decisions that have happened so far in Green Bay. He wants a new contract situation. Gutekunst thinks that the relationship is not broken yet. But I think Rodgers thinks the relationship is pretty broken at this point. Multiple teams have contacted, inquiring to land Rodgers. So the Packers have a lot on their hands right now. Next, we talked about the quarterbacks the most important position in the sport. There are 5 of them taken. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and last but not least, Mac Jones. I ranked the situation that they were heading into for the 2021 NFL season. I said Mac Jones is in the best situation. He's got great offensive talent around him, got a good defense, and it's okay if he doesn't start right away because Cam Newton right now was signed to be the starter. Second best situation, I had Trey Lance just because, again, he doesn't need to start right away, and he's on a Super Bowl-ready team. Next, I had Trevor Lawrence. I compared him to Andrew Luck and what he could possibly do in his first year. Not far behind Justin Fields. Matt Nagy, remember, is an offensive mind. Justin Fields is a great player. Let's see what they can do. And, of course, Chicago will always have that great defense. And then I had Zach Wilson ranked last just because of the division that he will be playing in, the help that the Jets gave him on offense, or lack thereof, and a new head coach, new quarterback, new a lot of things. Doesn't seem to be a recipe for success. Now let's talk about the next segment. Atlanta had the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft. And if you looked at their Twitter over the course of the last several weeks, they even tweeted out a few weeks ago, we're open to trading the number 4 overall pick. They said they were open to it. Now, they ended up not trading that 4th overall pick. And then the conversation moved to, well, are they going to draft a quarterback? Are they going to draft this Pitts guy? Or are they going to trade out? What's going to happen? And out of those 3 options, they went with the tight end Pitts. And so Atlanta's in an interesting situation because you got to think big picture here. They're in a division with the Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay? They are also in a division with a team that wins quite a few games, at least in recent memory. That's the New Orleans Saints. Now, of course, they don't have Drew Brees anymore, but they do have a nice offense. They have a nice defense. They have Sean Payton. And then I think the Carolina Panthers just don't worry about until that bites me in the butt. But for now, don't worry about it. Now, Atlanta, they apparently, according to Peter King, had 2 players marked on their big board that were above everyone else. That was Trevor Lawrence and Kyle Pitts. Now, in the most unlikely scenario, which would be Trevor Lawrence falls to 4, that means that Trevor Lawrence would have been an Atlanta Falcon. And then the other guy, of course, was Kyle Pitts, the guy that they ended up drafting. So, at some point, the Falcons must have been convinced that Matt Ryan can play productive ball, above average, very good football for at least, 4 or 5 years? You think? Because I think there's a difference between rebuilding and reloading. I think what New England did was reloading. You don't fall off the cliff and win 2 games and then have the number 1 overall pick. Reloading's a bit different. It's you have guys that you think can do it, but you're just a few pieces away. So you go and get those pieces. That, I think, is what the Falcons did. The Falcons said to themselves, we have Matt Ryan, we have Julio Jones, we have Calvin Ridley. How are we this far out of it? What are we missing here? So they went and got Kyle Pitts. They went and got a safety, Richie Grant. They got an offensive tackle out of Michigan. They got a DB. They got another defensive end. They got a corner. They got a what? So they got some pieces that could help them. And they think that Matt Ryan can get it done. That's what that means. Now, do we think that? Do we think that Matt Ryan, MVP from 2016, how far away is that Matt Ryan from, being back to that type of form? It's not like Matt Ryan has been bad. I don't think. I don't think this has been Matt Ryan's fault over the course of these couple dismal years that the Falcons have had. I remember it was 2019 when they went on like this late 5-game run that pretty much saved Dan Quinn's job for the time being. But they just, looking at Matt Ryan's stats here, he's pretty consistent. You know what you're going to get. He's going to be somewhere between 25 and 35 touchdowns every year. Low teens for interceptions. But he throws the ball a ton. He led the league in completions this year. He led the league in attempts this year. So their run game is just not formidable. They just don't run the football. So they do trust Matt Ryan to throw it a lot. But they haven't made the playoffs since 2017. So they think that they are a Kyle Pitts away from competing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the division and competing with premier teams in the NFC like the Packers, depending on if Rodgers will be there or not, like the Seahawks, like the 49ers, like the Rams. That's what they think. That's what the Kyle Pitts draft choice tells you. Now, looking at this, Peter King's analysis of this on Football Morning in America, he said that the Falcons see a high-quality starting quarterback who's thrown for 55,000 yards in the league. Unbelievable experience, and is still playing well. So I guess they think that Matt Ryan can still play until he's 40. They think that Julio Jones at 32 can still get it done. And they think that Calvin Ridley is going to be awesome. He looks fantastic. Russell Gage, he's going to be really good. Hayden Hurst, that's what they think is going to be the future for them. They also got Cordero Patterson. And you see the types of things that Patterson can do. He did a bunch of those things in New England. Running back, wide receiver, special teams, he can do it all. So that Atlanta Falcons, they chose the reload route and not the rebuild. I personally would not have done that. I think I would have chosen the rebuild route. And if I'm the Falcons organization, I hope by the time we rebuild, I draft maybe a quarterback now and hope that in 3 years from now, Brady is gone and then that division is open for us. That's what you got to hope for if you're the Falcons. Now, another thing that I still want to get on, and I don't think I, accurately gave time to, was we talked about the 4th overall pick with the Atlanta Falcons. But I still think that we should talk about that 15th overall pick with Mac Jones and the Patriots. Now, again, the reason Mac Jones was picked because of the relationship that Nick Saban has with Bill Belichick. Okay, you've seen the Bill Belichick, Nick Saban documentary. They hang out with each other for several days during the offseason, and all they do is talk football. That's all they do. And they work together in Cleveland. They have a similar mindset. So Mac Jones knows the way that he's going to be coached. He got coached hard by Nick Saban. He's going to get coached hard by Belichick. And I think that the situation that Mac Jones is going into is going to be so good, especially for confidence, too. He's in a quarterback room with Cam Newton, who throwing a forward pass is difficult. He also is in a quarterback room with Jarrett Stidham, who New England didn't even trust enough to give a single start. So you're in a situation where they don't trust one quarterback to even start a game. Another quarterback is skipping balls to his wide receivers. He can't throw a swing pass to the running back, James White, out of the backfield. And so now you're Mac Jones. You're like, okay, I played in a championship game with Alabama against all this SEC competition. Alabama might have had the toughest schedule they've had in several years because they only played SEC teams. They didn't get any of those gimme Appalachian State rollovers or anything like that. So they're playing one of the toughest schedules. Mac Jones crushed it. And now you're going to get coached by Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. And you have Hunter Henry, and you have Johnny Smith, and you have Kendrick Bourne, and you have Nelson Aguilar. You still have James White. But, and again, I don't think Mac Jones, I said it enough, he doesn't need to start right away. But what does that say if he doesn't start right away? Are we saying that he didn't beat out Cam Newton, or are we saying that he just never had a shot to beat out Cam Newton? So that is something you need to take into consideration there. And you also think about what he has on defense to work with, too. This is a team that went 7-9 the year before. A team that went 7-9 with, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Jones. You got Hightower, who's back. Devin McCourty still is playing at a high level in this league. So taking all those factors into account, they're not in a bad situation here. The only concerning thing is Buffalo and Miami are still better than you. Now, you're way better than the Jets, who, like we talked about with Zach Wilson, is just not going to be the answer there. But Miami has a great coach in Brian Flores. They crushed the draft in what most people would think. They completely upgraded their team. And with a quarterback carousel of Fitzpatrick and Tua, they managed to put together a decent record and even compete against the Bills at times and make their life a little tough in the division. Now, I don't think they're going to, go and win the division, but I think that certainly they drafted Jalen Waddle, number 6. You think they didn't talk to Tua Tagovailoa beforehand and say, hey, what did you think of Jalen Waddle at Alabama when you used to play with him? Say, would you rather have Jalen or Devontae Smith? And he said, I'd rather have Jalen probably. So now you're reunionizing both Tua and Waddle. So they're back together. That's instant chemistry right there. They also had another first-round pick, number 18 overall. Jalen Phillips, the defensive end out of Miami. He's going to be rushing the passer. And for the Dolphins, that was a position of need. So, again, there were other edge rusher options available, like Kwity Paye. But they would rather go with this guy, Phillips, who was rated pretty highly Now, in the second round, they went with Javon Holland, who's a safety. And think about this. Brian Flores, he's a defensive mind. And besides his Jalen Waddle pick in the first round, he went and got 2 defensive guys. One to rush the passer and one to play a versatile safety position. At Oregon, Holland played 64% of his coverage snaps in the slot. He's a great tackler. He's got some speed. And then after that, you get a guy to protect Tua. Liam Eichenberg, tackle out of Notre Dame. So now you get a guy to protect him for Tua. Make sure your quarterback is protected is always a necessary facet. And then you go and get a tight end out of Boston College, Hunter Long. That was their strategy. Dolphins, everyone's saying, crushed it. And again, in front of you, you still got the Buffalo Bills, who still wear the crown in that division. Again, this goes back to Mac Jones. Good situation, but he's still got 2 good teams in front of him. And I think this segment is more about the draft in general at this point. But if we think about it, what does Jalen Waddle being drafted at 6 tell you more than anything? Instead of Devonta Smith. Doesn't that tell you that maybe Tua thinks that Waddle is better than Smith? Now, I think another team that crushed it with the draft pick was the Eagles, who did draft Devonta Smith. That's another reunion right there. Because guess who's throwing the football? Jalen Hurts. Guess who he used to throw to at Alabama? Devonta Smith. And think about how many Alabama guys were drafted in this first round. It is insanity. And so, again, the first, and when you talk about reunions too, in my mock draft, I had predicted Jamar Chase to go to the Bengals. I think I was right there. Talk about my draft in the first round. I did the, first 10 picks. I think I had Trevor Lawrence 1, Wilson 2. I had put Jones 3. I had said Pitts 4. I think I had said Chase 5. Miami, I don't think I got. The Lions, I missed on. Panthers, I missed on. The Broncos, I missed on. And then, of course, I did not see the trade coming. So, yeah, that's where we're at right now. And, of course, this all started with, are the Falcons reloading or rebuilding? They chose reload. Very interesting option right here. So, again, I think this draft in the first round was stacked. Also stacked with Alabama guys. But that's another conversation right there. So I think, again, for a lot of teams, the future is bright. The Falcons, tricky situation. If your team's like the Falcons and your team's like the Patriots, you just have roadblocks ahead of you in the division. And the easiest way to get into the playoffs is to win the division. And if you can't win the division, you're going to have to, get to the wild card, which is still hard. So, yeah, it is a time of a lot of hope. But right now, if you look at the Atlanta Falcons, I think they chose, in hindsight, of course, which is always 2020, chose the wrong option here, especially with who you got in front of you with the Tom Brady Buccaneers. All right, next and last segment that we're going to have on the show is we are going to get into the breaking news, which was the Buffalo Bills exercise option on Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds. And what does this mean for the team that went to the AFC Championship game in the 2020 season? Right after the break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the break that we were just on. How about that? So, what did we talk about in the first segment? Well, in the first segment, we, of course, talked about Aaron Rodgers and the dismay that happened in Green Bay. We've been over that. We've harped on it. Let's move on and get away from that topic. All right, next topic that we had was the NFL draft quarterbacks in the first round. We ranked their situations. You know, what is the outlook for them heading into the 2021 NFL season and beyond? We then talked about the Atlanta Falcons situation because everyone was unsure if they were going to go quarterback or trade out or go Pitts. And they ended up going Pitts. So that was very, very telling of what they think of their organization for the future. Now, last but not least, we're going to get into some breaking news that I saw as we began to record the podcast today, or if you're listening to this not today, because you were listening to this on what appears to be a Tuesday. But according to Pro Football Talk, and the article is now no longer up, which I wonder if their source was bad. We're kind of going right in here on a whim. And Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk had written that the Buffalo Bills and Allen and Edmonds were extended for a fifth year. And then they deleted the article. And now the Twitter sphere, Buffalo Bills, I guess officially did post saying that they have exercised fifth-year option on quarterback Josh Allen and linebacker Tremaine Edmonds. So it is officially official. According to the Twitter world, which of course does not lie, as we know, Twitter is real life news source, and we have to take it for fact. So the fifth-year option, in terms of monetary sense, we'll start there, is going to cost the Bills $23.1 million in 2022. And again, this locks in Allen and Edmonds for their fifth year. And we had an episode a few weeks ago about what the Buffalo Bills should be doing with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I had mentioned, was interviewed by Kyle Brandt on a podcast called 10 Questions. One of the questions Brandt asked Allen what his thoughts were on a franchise tag, to which Allen said, ew. He said, ew. Obviously, he does not want to be tagged. He wants a long-term deal. Probably somewhere near what Mahomes is set to make. Now, I don't know if the value of the contract is going to be $500 million like Mahomes' is. But I think that Allen does want something in that range. Now, Allen says he wants to be a Buffalo for life. Wants to stay in Western New York. And I don't blame him. Allen, like I said, is like kind of a giant, a gentle giant. He's kind. And he has a monster arm. And kind of, it's not like he has a Baker Mayfield type of personality, but he does just kind of seem at times silly. But he's a stud. And Tremaine Edmonds is one of the best linebackers now. He's a difference maker for that Bills defense. And so they exercise their fifth-year option. Now, this doesn't rule out that they are going to work on an extension for Allen. But I think if I'm Allen, I would have hoped to have been extended. Probably this offseason. Now, I know there's a deadline which you have to either pick up the fifth-year option or decline it if you're the club. And I'm sure that's why we are now seeing this news, because the deadline is approaching or has approached. And, of course, you have to, if you're Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds, you are exercising these options, not declining it until you can sign an extension for both of these guys. So, listen, Josh Allen, he's the future of the Buffalo Bills. He wants to be there for a long time. So you exercise his fifth-year option, and in the meantime, you work on an extension. What I don't want this to turn into for the Buffalo Bills is a way that just gives them time. I think if you say, well, we have him locked up through 2022 now, we have time to work on an extension. Tick-tock, because every second that goes by could possibly be, or every game at least, if Josh Allen is an MVP candidate, goes to the championship game or goes to the Super Bowl again, that price just went up for Josh Allen. And then he's sitting there, he's like, ooh, you didn't extend me last offseason. You want me to help you out. So how much of a hometown discount does Josh Allen want to give the Buffalo Bills? It's a great question to ask. And you take a look at the Bills draft and how they fared. Now, the Brandon Beane and McDermott era has been awesome so far. They've turned that club around from a joke to one of the best teams in the NFL. And they've done so through free agent signings or trades and the draft. You get guys like Allen and Edmonds, we just talked about, in the draft. You go acquire guys like Diggs. You go get guys like Beasley. You go breed talent like Gabe Davis. And then you have a draft. And how did they do in this draft? Well, what was an issue for the Buffalo Bills? One of the issues was stopping the run. Right? Stopping the run was one of their issues. They played pretty well on defense on the back end, right? You got guys like Trey White, who is one of the best corners in the league. But then take a look at who they drafted 30th overall. Gregory Rousseau, the defensive end out of Miami. And all are saying that it makes perfect sense because defensive end and rushing the passer is a position of need for the Buffalo Bills. And if you pair him next to Ed Oliver, that could be the type of pressure that Buffalo needs to get and the type of run stuffing that Buffalo needs to get. And then what about the next pick for them? They went defensive end again, Carlos Basham Jr. And we talked about earlier in the show, quarterback is the most important position in the NFL. But what do you need paired with that? Let's take a look at the Super Bowl champions. They got their quarterback But how did they beat Mahomes? Brady helped them win it, but how did they beat Mahomes? Well, they were swarming him with pressure with guys like Shaq Barrett and JPP, Vita Vea. Everyone getting to him. So now Brandon Beane is saying, okay, let me just load up a little bit on defensive ends. Let me go get Basham and start harassing the quarterback. Because if the Brady Buccaneers could do that to Mahomes, why not us? Because that's what halted us in the AFC Championship game, was not being able to dethrone Mahomes. So now you got Oliver, Basham, Rousseau on the defensive line. And then they go and get a tackle, okay, in the third round to help shore up that offensive line. He might not play right away because I think you still have Deion Dawkins and Darrell Williams for a few years. But it's always good to have good linemen to back up in case. They didn't really add any help on the skill position offensive side of the football, with the only guy being Marquez Stevenson. But besides that, oh, you know what else? The Bills drafted a guy with the last name Wild Goose. Defensive back, Wisconsin. Buffalo Bills getting a Wild Goose. How about that? So the Bills they had because I think that was probably their issue. Last year, the Buffalo Bills was playing defense and stopping Mahomes. That was their issue. Or stopping a Derrick Henry on Tennessee on a Tuesday night. Or a Monday night, whatever, Wednesday night. Who knows with all the games being played at different times in the 2020 campaign. But the Bills, very, very smart of them to keep loading up on defense, because that offense is gonna keep clicking. In a season where you had no offseason, Allen and Diggs were the most lethal combination in the NFL. And they had no time to work together, and they clicked. That's hard to do. So you would only imagine improvement from there. Makes sense, improvement. So they're going to pick up right where they left off on offense, and on the defense, they're hoping to revamp and improve, because that Buffalo defense isn't a bad defense. They just have areas of weakness that they need to improve upon. So the original point of this segment was Allen and Edmonds, their options being exercised. Now, how do you then get these guys extended long term? Because you don't want this show to stop just after a few years, or have contract disputes, or tag them and then have Allen be unhappy and saying ew. You want to make these guys happy. They trust you and you trust them. That's the way to succeed with, players in the NFL. For so long it was, Brady trusts New England and New England trusted Brady. He would give them a discount and he would trust them to allocate that money that he discounted properly. If Allen gives the Bills a hometown discount, I would expect that he wants to be reciprocated in years and guaranteed dollars. And so the Bills have to trust Allen to stay on the field and to be productive and to not regress. And Allen needs to trust that the Bills are going to use that money to re-sign guys that they need on that team to be competing with the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's where they're at right now. And speaking of fifth-year options, because the 2018 guys are all coming up for their fifth-year options, need to be exercised by May 3rd, which is Monday, which is today, which is yesterday if you're listening to you. So let's take a look at who has been exercised. Baker Mayfield exercised $18.8 million. Barkley was exercised for $7 million. The Panthers exercised Darnold's. Denzel Ward's option was exercised. Bradley Chubb's option was exercised. Quentin Nelson was exercised. Josh Allen was exercised. Roquan Smith was exercised. Mike McGlinchey is exercised. And Josh Rosen, no option. Minka Fitzpatrick, Steelers exercised his option. Vita Vea was exercised. Daron Payne was exercised. I mean, all of these guys are getting extensions or exercised. The first guy not exercised, right, besides Rosen, significantly was Leighton Vander Esch. They are not exercising him. Billy Price on the Bengals, they're not exercising him. Rashawn Evans, the linebacker, not a bad linebacker either for the Titans. They're not exercising him. Isaiah Wynn in New England, they have not decided yet. DJ Moore is being exercised. Hayden Hurst will not be exercised. That's an interesting one, too. The Falcons are not exercising Hayden Hurst's option. And is this because they just drafted Kyle Pitts? So, very, very interesting. Calvin Ridley, exercise. Rashad Penny is not being exercised. Terrell Edmonds, Termaine Edmonds' brother, is not being exercised. Tavon Bryan, no decision. Mike Hughes, no decision. Sony Michel, no decision. Lamar Jackson, exercised. And this is a very interesting segment. Something that we did last week was saying, how have these guys fared? How have these guys worked out? It's been 3 years of playing in the NFL for these 2018 guys. And so many of them, especially, I think like the first 15 guys, it was exercise. So these guys have worked out. We just took a look. And yes, there are some which I would question, right? Like Sam Darnold, though he was exercised, I don't think he's, going to be successful. But looking through, this was a stacked 2018 first-round draft class with so many of the guys working out. I mean, where do you see this? I mean, probably there's like 6 guys who weren't exercised or extended. And it's not like they're scrub players either. Sony Michel and Isaiah Wynn, they're starters in the NFL. They're not spectacular, but they're starters in the NFL. So, listen, this is a pretty stacked 2018 draft class. And, it's interesting to see how these guys have fared. Very interesting one was Leighton Vander Esch not being exercised, his option. Sean Lee is retired for the Cowboys. And then they go and draft, I believe, if I'm right, did they not get Micah Parsons to supplement for Sean Lee? I believe they did. And then they had also gotten, who else had they gotten? They got Micah Parsons, right? That's the guy that I'm talking about, the linebacker, to take over for Sean Lee, play alongside Jalen Smith. Look at all these defensive guys drafted by the Cowboys. Linebacker, corner, D-line, edge, corner, linebacker, then tackle, then finally a receiver, then D-line, then corner, then offensive line. That was the issue with the Cowboys. It was not their offense with Dak Prescott. It was their defense giving up like 30, 40 points a game. It first starts with winning that NFC East. Surefire way to get into the playoffs. And I think with this reloaded defense, they have a real good shot to do so. A real good shot to do so. And they loaded up on the defensive side of the football. Good for them. So again, we talked about in this segment implications for a couple different teams. The Buffalo Bills and their options with Josh Allen and Edmonds. You got other teams. We took a look at those 2018 draft picks and how they have fared. The 2018 draft class is a stacked one. a lot of successful guys there and a lot of guys exercising their options. This is an episode 1. You talk about that draft from this past weekend, and it's interesting to see. There are guys that aren't going to work out. There are guys that, even if they do play well, they're just going to be stuck on a bad team, or they're going to be stuck in a division with really good teams in front of them. And so there is hope now. But if we think about it, there are going to be 272 NFL games this year. 272. And the total number of wins and losses aren't going to change every year. Only so many teams can win. Only so many teams can lose. Not everyone can go to the playoffs. And that's the harsh reality of it. Great way to start off your Tuesday with my optimism right there. Some people are going to fail. Just remember that. So, thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Cup podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that would be amazing. Thank you. And once again, I am Andrew Decino, and I am signing off. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.